We have an amazing panel right now where we're going to discuss about showing product fast without compromise. Gilad spoke wonderfully before, and it was a wonderful introduction to the day. So first, we're going to start with introductions. I'm Barry Mueller. I do product marketing here at Demostack. So really excited for everyone to be here. We have also Laura here. She's the CRO at People.ai, formerly Global Vice President of Revenue at Unity, also former head of sales at Google Cloud. So pretty cool track record. Laura, what's something else that you could tell us about yourself to get this day started?
Okay, I guess I'll just share kind of a random fun fact. Like when I graduated from university, I went to UC Santa Barbara here in California, and I wasn't ready for like the real world yet. The job market was not great, and so I ended up taking a job at a company called Club Med, if anyone's ever been to one of those. And I was a sports instructor there, and I would not give up those 2.5 years that I spent traveling around the world and being in resorts where everybody's very happy all the time. I wouldn't give that up for anything. So that was my first real job out of college, if you can call it a real job. I worked my tail off, but there's a fun fact.
Love that. That's an awesome fun fact. Love it a lot. Brent, he is the VP of Solution and Value Consulting at Gainsight. Recently found out he's a big Chiefs fan. What else is something I don't know about you, Brent?
Yeah, so I'm a Chiefs fan. I've been a diehard my whole life, so I'm not one of those new ones in the last 5 years. Went through a lot of pain and agony. I think the only other one I would add is I actually just hit 10 years at Gainsight today, ironically. So it seems pretty crazy.
Congratulations.
They gave me a kudos board, which brought me lots of tears actually this morning of like old colleagues. So that was a good way to start the day and bring back some good memories. So happy to be here.
Amazing. We definitely planned that so that it'd be at your 10-year anniversary. So thanks for coming on. And Todd is the Global Vice President of Solution Engineering at Salesforce, founder of Q Branch. Todd, maybe can you tell us something that we don't know about you?
Oh, you're muted.
All right. You know what? Let's continue on. Brent, Laura, does that work for you?
Yeah, that sounds good.
I've noticed this shift with pre-sales and that role today. Brent, maybe you can start us off and tell us kind of like what's been changing the past few years for the pre-sales role. How are things different than they were, let's say, 5 years ago, either at Gainsight or in general?
Yeah, I'll speak, I think, kind of from my own personal experience of what some changes have been at Gainsight. And I think one of them has been, I think we've seen a significant shift just in terms of valuation of SaaS companies. And one of those shifts being the emphasis of multi-product strategy. So I know we saw PLG was really big 3 or 4 years ago. And I feel like a lot of just valuation shift has been around multi-product. And that's where Gainsight's really focused. A lot of our organizational focus is on multi-product strategy. But I think with that actually comes a lot of challenges with what to demo when it comes to specific products, how that aligns to discovery to ensure as you're forming and, going through that strategy. So one of those challenges has been like, and, obviously Todd at Salesforce has had this challenge a lot longer than we have at Gainsight, but it's what to actually show that may align differently to what your prospects think they need in terms of a feature or a product. And so really, again, discovery is so key, but I think as I've just seen the multi-product focus has really given us a new dimension of some of those demo bottleneck challenges.
Cool. I love that. Todd, what have you seen in the past few years that, same question to you, what have you seen in the past few years that has changed for the pre-sales function as a whole?
Yeah, can you hear me now?
Yeah, we can.
Oh, I was going to make a joke before this, and my fun fact wasn't going to be nearly as good as Laura, so it's best we skipped it, to be honest.
No.
I was going to make a joke besides probably being on mute. I'm going to have a muddy dog come tackle me and maybe like some drilling in my walls, which is very possible still. So, one of the trends I'm seeing, and, maybe this will relate to what Laura's going to say, is I see sales engineering or solutions being pulled all over the company, not just in kind of the mid funnel, but up funnel, down funnel, and especially when it comes to renewals. And I think, some of that's self-inflicted, right? We're seeing some layoffs and downturns in some of these companies, right? And certain departments are getting slimmer, so we're getting pulled. I think that's part of it. The other part of it is the buyer wants what we have. The buyer wants to be educated. They want to be educated earlier. So if we find ourselves being pulled up into the funnel and all over the company to help revenue, that's because of the buyer. And that's really a big trend I'm seeing across a lot of companies.
Cool. Love that. Laura, I know you're coming in from the CRO perspective, but would love to hear your perspective on this.
Yeah, well, and at Unity and at People.ai, I run sales engineering, right? So my teams are there. I'm a big fan of show, not tell. I'm like a visual person. So I believe that people want to see what you have and experience it before they ever talk to a salesperson. So we're always looking for creative ways to highlight pieces of what these products can do much, much earlier than you used to have to do that. That was something you had to almost earn as a potential customer, right? You had to make it through a qualification process before we'd show you a demo. And now it's like, if you've got a great product, why not get it out earlier? So that's definitely one. The other thing I'd say is personalization. So if we even think about how all of us as individuals interact with what's happening online, if I go on to go shopping for something, I expect personalization. I would expect the same in any demo I'm going to spend time seeing. So at People.ai, there are many different personas that will interact with what we've got, the data that we collect, and it's how you bring that data to life in a demo, and it depends on what's the role in the company. So there's a lot of pressure to make these things spot on and speak to that person that you're talking to right out of the gate.
Love that. Todd, you want to tap on that motion of the different perspective from the buyer?
Yeah, I see there's two things that are kind of in conflict. Like, sellers want to be sellers, right? And they feel like their prospect needs to be sold to. And buyers don't really want to be sold to. Like, if you put up a quick survey at the beginning of their journey, it's like, do you want to be sold to or educated? I feel like very few would choose the please sell to me. I can't wait for this. They're trying to make a smart buying decision. And so they're really trying to consume as much information as possible. And, to Laura's point, the easier that you can make it for them, the more you can help them see themselves in your product, the earlier, the better off everyone's going to be. So I think, we certainly saw this shift at the beginning of COVID where it's like, wait, I can go buy a Tesla without talking to someone. That's an incredible experience if you were so inclined to want to buy a Tesla. We have all these expectations we have as consumers, but when it comes to B2B buying, it's just awful. It's just awful.
Yeah, I think Brent can talk more to that personalization.
Yeah, I mean, I think it really goes to what Todd was referring to, is that I feel like so often, like, we do expect what we have for B2C products, but then there is also, the reality is we're still in sales, and there is this education piece that we all need to continue to focus on. And so it's shifting the way that our sellers are selling to being able to continue to educate, because there are only so many things when it comes to the content that you're pushing out on your website or forms that you can read, et cetera. But there are still things that you need to educate buyers on throughout that process. And so what we found is there is that level of customization when it is to the product that you're actually going to show, that is pulling that prospect through the sales cycle of educating them. But when you put that spin of the things that you've researched specific to that prospect into the things that you want to show them, it's going to, kind of what Laura was referring to, you've actually bought the right now to start to talk to them about maybe it's products that they didn't realize they actually do need. But by showing that you've put in the effort, you've started to tailor that towards them, it's going to open their eyes up, where, to what Todd was saying, like, you are actually selling to them, but you're selling to them in a way that's more educational. It allows you to start to, move that deal in the direction that you need to throughout your sales cycle.
Yeah, love that. Todd, before you were mentioning this seismic shift, if you will, is that pre-sales is involved in different places, where later, earlier, thus in creating more pressure actually for the pre-sales function. So one of those pressures leads to a demo bottleneck, something that Gilad discussed in the beginning. What is that bottleneck to you, and how is it that pre-sales can get around some of that bottlenecks with some of these changes?
Yeah, I like that you guys are using that term because I've been saying it for a while that solutions or pre-sales, whatever you choose to call it, is one of the largest bottlenecks in selling today. And that's not supposed, I'm solutions to the core. So, I'm not trying to poke fun at the profession. It just is what it is. And really what's behind that comment is that, historically, if someone wants to see your product, you have to schedule a human. And it's still largely true right now. Like we are still about throwing humans at this problem. And I think, we as a profession need to wake up that that might have been fine 4 years ago. And especially as we're getting stretched across the stack, 4 years ago, we would have thrown bodies at it. And we did. And now all of our companies have corrected and they're reducing the head count. And so just to get right to the point, because I'm dragging this a bit, we need software. We need software if we're going to do this. And I realize, the event we're at today, but every other role in the selling process is using software to get better. We're at the point where Gong is recording every single word on a call to make you a 0.5% better. And we in this space, and it's an exciting time because a lot of software is coming onto the scene. It's it's still early days, but I don't see any other way we're gonna scale ourselves without aggressively using software.
Makes a lot of sense. Laura, what are your thoughts on that?
Yeah, I mean, I totally agree. And I'm 10 weeks into this job at People.ai, and we just launched a product called Sales AI. And the reason I bring it up is because in the demo of Sales AI is when I see the light bulbs go off for our customers. Like, oh my God, you guys can do that, right? Okay, I get the text captured through conversational intelligence if I'm using Zoom or if I'm using, Gong, etc. But it's also the look. It's that I want to know it's right there, right? So it's also tied to what they're seeing. It's not just what they're saying. So I completely agree with what Todd said. It's like we need software to help with this process too, because when people's eyes light up because of what they're seeing, you want to know that, right? Product managers want to know that. Sellers want to know that. Leadership wants to know that. So I think it's pulling this holistic thing together. And yeah, we're going to need software to do that. We'll never, I will bet that there will be very few companies in Silicon Valley that rescale up to the levels they were at 2 years ago. So how do we get more creative?
Love that. I wanted to dive into some of the, so we're bringing software now to help undo the bottleneck. That's one solution. What are some of the other ways that we can help make the bottleneck better? Brent, do you have any ideas on this?
I mean, I think it's kind of in line with what these two were just saying. I mean, I think if I look back 2 years ago when, everything was awesome, let's say in SaaS, like I think every company was doing phenomenal. For Gains, we looked at what is our ramp plan for the next 2 years when it comes to the sales team. And what I told our leadership was, in order to get my team where they need to be, we need to hire ahead. So we kind of need to scrap ratios in terms of where we're at, because I need to hire ahead the SC team because there's a longer runway in terms of onboarding. Now, where I'm going with this is what it ultimately led to is times changed quickly. And all of a sudden I had way too many people on my team. And what it actually created was it's like one of my big screw ups if I look back, because what it created was it actually hid a lot of problems. And so I feel like good times hide real problems. And so what Todd was referring to is it actually stretched us across the org so far because we had so much bandwidth. And so where I'm going with all of this is what I've found, in order to, almost like fix your bottleneck internally, you almost need to expose your problems of the things that the SCs are actually like band-aiding together. And it almost forces a way to say no, if that makes sense. Because I feel like so many times we sit in, strategic meetings at a leadership team and we're like, yes, we're going to change our ways. SCs will not do X, Y, and Z. And then sure enough, 2 weeks later, something happens and you're like, no, it's okay this one time. And then all of a sudden this one time becomes the norm. And so what I feel like I've learned over these 3 years that I've shifted so much is like everyone needs to feel the pain. And there's so much pain that SCs take on at a team level that don't get exposed until you have a real reason to say no. So that to me is like helped our bottleneck, because I no longer have an option of like throwing bodies at the problem. Because the bodies just don't exist, which sucks, but it's helped our problem now. Yeah, Todd.
So first of all, like, you were just vulnerable there in front of a lot of people, which was awesome. I'm such a Brene Brown fan. So like the fact that you just, laid it all out there. But in what you said, I think is the big shift that we really need all SE leaders to start thinking about. Our currency up until this point has been headcount, right? What's going to get us promoted? How big is our team? How big can we grow it? Oh, look, a new opportunity in the company for us to go spend time over here. How lucky we are. And we jump at it all the time. We're like, oh, yes, this is great, And we, Laura, I'm going to look at you, because I think we need to shift from our reward and carrot being headcount and growth to revenue focused. We need to be in the cockpit with the CRO. Laura, I know you're head of solutions. He's an incredible human being. But I'm sure that's how you're looking at him, right? Is like, don't talk to me about how many demos your team did. Let's partner on revenue.
Absolutely. When I joined Unity in 2018, money was free flowing. It was like, go build the team you need, right? And to the point, right? Like, it's easy to just solve it with people. You come over to People.ai, and everyone's going through this right now. It's like a 180 turn, right? Back to a focus on profitability. So it forces you to turn knobs and really figure out, like, I want my sales engineers on the demos that are going to close. So, you go back to what you were talking about, is using software early on, bringing the humans in once something is more qualified, right? Or having those humans on one-to-many efforts versus just a one-to-one. So driving creativity and fine-tuning. And I love what you're saying too about, like, it's so weird that everything we all do is like, how many people are on your team, right? Like, forget it. We should all be proud to say, like, we brought, and I'll chew my own horn for just a moment, but when I was at Unity, we grew revenue 45% with less OpEx and headcount than we had the year before. And the only way we did that was by getting creative and fine tuning. Right. So, yeah, I totally agree with you. It's such a weird, it's kind of like lawyers billing hours, right? It's like, well, shouldn't they get paid based on like the work they do? Sorry if there are any attorneys out there and I'm offending anyone, but it's just some of these models are kind of weird.
Love that. Thank you everyone for also that. I think it's super interesting. Let's talk about the shift from, I guess, team. I would even say if you're an IC, maybe even number of demos done as an SC. And now we're looking at it more from a revenue perspective, because that's what we're being forced to do as leaders, because that's what is expected. Let's talk about that. How can pre-sales and in general sales work together to show that their position is creating revenue? Brent, do you want to start with this one?
Yeah, I mean, for me, I think it comes down, and I think someone had said it in the chat, but it comes down, it's basics, but it's data. I mean, there's just so many things, and we use Vivint. I'll say it on this call, but it's allowed us to understand deliverables and activities by stage in the sales cycle that directly then correlate to revenue that's being brought in. So there's so many times that there's, pre-sales best practices that's really difficult to quantify. And I think by establishing, we are doing X, Y, Z, if it's a proof of concept, if it's a demo that we're leveraging Demostack or a different type of demo, and we can see these activities correlate to faster win rates, lower CAC, whatever that may be. I mean, that to us was the key. That was ensuring that we captured what we were doing when, and then being able to pivot. Part of our, Todd, you talked about at the top, having a voice at the table during QBRs where the SC team can sit in front of the leadership and say, when we do these things at these times, it changes whatever. And then being able to make those shifts has been key for us, just to, again, do the right things at the right time and not waste time where it wasn't having a positive impact.
Makes sense. Laura, have you noticed as CRO and as a sales leader that pre-sales maybe is talking a different language in the past few years?
I guess one of the things I would say is I expect the SE teams to have a big seat at the table, right? So when I'm looking at an opportunity and assessing what's the likelihood of something closing, right? I want to hear from the SE that has been partnered on that deal too, to tell me that technically we're there, right? So I don't know if that totally answers your question, but it's something that's top of mind for me. And then I'm looking for clues. You asked about how do we know that SEs are adding value, right? A lot of it's kind of tell me you guys if you agree, but a lot of it's still it's what I hear out there, right? And if I look at and there's a couple SEs that are never being leveraged, I know there's a problem, right? So it's a lot of who I see getting pulled into the big meetings that I know are adding value. So my response there was a little all over the map, but just some things I'm thinking about.
I love your response, and there's some really amazing things in there that I want to just dissect a little bit because, first of all, in your organization, solutions have a seat at the table. And that is something that all solutions strive for, but is really not that common. So kudos that solutions rolls into you. So that's kind of first part. The second thing you said is that you want to hear from them in the deal cycle, right? So that's not only do they have a seat at the table, you're listening to them at the table, which is incredible, right? And we as solutions leaders, we all want that. Mm-hmm. What you also said was, I'm going to paraphrase, how we're doing or the performance is still a little bit, finger in the air, and so that I think is the opportunity for us in solutions and Brent kicked us off with the data. We need to do a better job of owning our data narrative. And a lot of times we fall short and it's we did X many demos and these are the activities. And we need to take it to that final step of no, this is how it led to win rates. This is how it led to bigger deals. This is how we grew the deal. And so we all need to take some responsibility and take it that extra mile, especially if we're in a spot where we don't have a seat at the table. It's probably because we're not helping people make that leap. And the last thing I'll say is as we're getting pulled to other parts of the funnel, all of a sudden, maybe we're making, we use consensus heavily at Salesforce. We're making demo videos that are used for prospecting qualification up in the funnel. Well, guess what? We better get savvy on things like marketing pipe and pipe maturation. These are CMO terms that, probably come out of their mouth 100 times a day. Well, we should start to get familiar with some of these ways that the business is measured. We need to stop coming up with kind of our own measurements and expecting people to go, oh, you know what? You're right. Number of demos really does matter. I'm going to go talk to investors tomorrow about that. No, like the deck is set.
Yeah.
There are set financials and EBITDA. And there's these set things that we are not going to change. We got to plug into them. Sorry, that was a little bit of a rant, but Laura, you got me all fired up.
One thing I would add to, Todd, that you left out that I don't think you intentionally left out, but I think is also a key piece of this is also how do you have the seat at the table with your product team when it comes to roadmap? Because there's so much that as SCs, we hear and will say, but it doesn't actually get heard internally. And so there's also this piece of correlation between the bottleneck may actually be a feature that doesn't exist. And until you quantify that and your product team deploys it, and then you draw that data line between like, I identified, you heard, you built, we sold. Now, hear me more. Like, so I think there's also this correlation to product leadership that we can also, I know personally on our team, we can do a better job, but I think across a lot of peers that I speak to, there's just, ensuring that the roadmap is leading in the direction of where SCs are hearing it, because we are front and center to the technology.
Yeah, Brent, just to back that up, I spoke to the head of solutions at a fairly large company, and at their last QBR was able to basically say like, hey, we didn't hit our numbers. Here's why. Look at all the things my team has identified that are not on our roadmap. The product team is off building their own roadmap.
Yep.
And this is why we are not closing these gaps, and got the respect.
Yep.
And the CEO just said, you're absolutely right.
Exactly. And a lot of times they're like, it's still, I don't know, for me personally, it's usually the low hanging fruit. Like when product hears us, they're like, oh, that's easy. Like I didn't even realize that there was that much value in the, in our TAM for that. And it's like, yeah, let's deliver it in a quarter and let's roll. So.
Well, and kind of going back to technology's role in all of this, right? So now the SE role is the liaison, not just with sales. It's the liaison with customer success, right? The baton pass once you close a customer. It's the liaison, like you said earlier, Todd, with marketing and building top of funnel, because now we're showing demos earlier in the cycle than we ever have been before. And to your point, like it's that feedback back to product, like that's a big job. And so if there are things that can help standardize, here's how I feed information back to each of these different organizations, I think that's super important.
Yeah. One thing I wanted to add there, just to make it maybe a little more tangible for folks on the call, because I know I'm speaking at a fairly high level intentionally, but if you're using a product like Demostack and you're a solutions expert and you took time to record that demo, and that demo is now on the website and customers and prospects are clicking through it, you need to find a way to capture and harness those metrics and take credit for them. Doesn't matter that it lived on the website. You made the content. Solutions is credited with the content. And so you got to harness that. And I think that's one of the things that's really exciting about this software in this space, is that it is going to start providing us the data to help us justify our roles.
Yeah, I love that. The last piece. This whole conversation I love. With regards to that last piece, Todd, something that Demostack has specifically built was not only to for people to be able to track who made the last product tour, the sandbox, but even if you're, for example, enabling an AE to demo earlier in the sales cycle, if you created that demo for the AE with the right guardrails, you also will be getting that credit because there's tracking from the demos that you created, even for live demos, which I think is pretty cool.
Yeah, I love that example, because built into the SE role is AE enablement. It's let's bring in some lunch and let's train them up on how to demo. And we hope and we pray that we had an impact and that they will demo. But we have actually no way of measuring that impact. And so it's one of the things I like about a lot of these tools is, like you just mentioned, we can start to track some of that.
Yeah, absolutely. I wanted to go back actually to something that Brent brought up in the beginning about this shift. And this, I think, might be Brent's like Gainsight story. He's been there for 10 years as of today, of that Gainsight now has more products. But I think everyone here has worked with multiple products at their company. I think it'd be pretty cool to discuss, are demos more complex today? Are the sales cycles more complex today? Maybe, Brent, you can even talk to Gainsight's specific case on having multiple products and sharing your thoughts on that and the demo.
Yeah, I think everyone would probably say yes, like they become more complex. But I think if you have a multi-product strategy or not, I think what's so important is like this profession has just become so much more well-defined in the last 2 to 3 years. And where I'm going with this is like, there's just like SC, like our CEO always says, like the SCs are magicians. And what we found is like that can either be in a simple product where you're telling a really compelling story. It could be a multi-product strategy, but like we're all storytellers. And what we found is by using actually Demostack's playbook functionality is it's allow us to actually define what that story is and be able to multiply that story across all sellers. So it's not just the SCs reading a script and then figuring out how to piece it all together because we know the product so well, but it's actually having a very well-defined script with very defined assets that are now pieced together very well to then allow for easier enablement, because at the core, what we have to do the best of everything is tell a story. And so what Demostack's allowed us to do, I will pitch it here, is focus more on storytelling versus making sure you click the right thing. And if it screws up, you do the 3 little things behind the scenes to make the demo flow really well. Like, again, we all in the SC profession know what happens there. But that's where we've been able to piece all this together much easier.
Love that. Thanks for sharing that. Todd, maybe you could talk about some Salesforce and the multiple products and how that plays in.
Yeah. Gosh, the multi-products is such a challenge. And I think, look, we're kind of on this journey, but, giving the buyer early on some options on what they want to learn. And I'll use this analogy. If you've ever found yourself on YouTube, you got sent there to watch a video, you watch it, and then you look up an hour later and you're like, holy cow, I've just been like watching videos for the last hour. Where'd the time go? How can we enable that for a buyer or a prospect or a customer? What if they want to go from your website down to like deep setup of your product and get educated on that without having to call you? Could we enable that experience? And I think, it's a tall order. AI, I'm sure, is the answer. It's the answer for everything lately. But, I think there needs to be a little bit of shift in selling, and people don't necessarily want to be sold to. They want to be educated. And sometimes we just need to get out of their way a little bit. And that's hard because at the same time, sellers have quotas and they have to, hit numbers. And so I think that's where the friction comes into play. But, something's got to change.
Laura, your thoughts?
I agree with everything that Todd said. I don't know if I have something specific to add to that. I do think everything is shifting, and we have to be aware of how that shift is taking place. I always think about, like, my job is to kind of fine tune, like I picture being in a cockpit, right? And you've got all these knobs that you can turn, right? And you're never going to get it perfect, by the way. As soon as you get it perfect, then something shifts again. But just seeing the way people buy, it's not a surprise because, again, as consumers, we have these expectations and it rolls into our work environment. So nothing specific other than that to add.
Okay, great. I love that analogy of the knobs, and it's something that Gilad, who spoke earlier, and I talk about. Like, it used to be that the knob was like, oh, hire more SCs, or if I hire more SCs, then I'll get more customization. And now if I want more customization, then I need to hire more SCs. And that's like, these are the questions and the decisions that people have to make. Or there's other things like tech and enabling the AEs to demo earlier, and things like that. I'm not sure how many people on this call have worked on enabling AEs earlier. I think, Todd, that's something that you've worked on, it seems. Maybe you can talk more about that, on getting pre-sales to help the AE team demo earlier, to show product really earlier in the sales cycle, because that's what it's about. That's part of this conversation.
Yeah, it is. If you're an SE, this is part of your job. If you're not an SE, it's the biggest secret in the world of that AE enablement is part of your role. And I always like to think about the new AE that starts with the company, right? It's going to take them a good year to get educated and savvy on the product to demo.
Yeah.
And I really feel for those people like starting a new tech job, right? There's so much coming at you. And so, yeah, I'm sure they appreciate the like bring in pizza and let's train you on how to do the demo. But that's on top of like 100 other things they're trying to learn and how to do their job and hit their quota and forecast and just navigate everything. And so anything we can do, anything. And that's why I love tools like Consensus and Demostack is like, could you put something in their hands day one that allows them to educate the buyer? And maybe it's not really them doing it. Maybe it's them hanging up the phone and say, you know what, after we hang up this phone, I'm going to send you a link to a customized demo. You're educating the buyer. You still have credibility, and you're surviving. You're surviving that first month, and you're moving the sales cycle forward. So, I mean, I think I wanted to just use that example of this is the mindset that we need to think about things. It's not just how much more education can we give the poor AE that just started this job. It's, the end customer needs that too. And so, that's, I think, the way we need to think about it.
For me, one thing I've done is try to have the SCs that are partnered with the AEs actually be the enablers. So instead, Todd, like you were saying, like, I don't think it should be part of like AE boot camp. I think it should actually be more of like that. One, it starts to build that partnership, which we all know is key. But two, it's like, don't call it a demo. Like, because as soon as AEs hear demo, or I don't know, I know a lot of AEs, they're going to turn it off. It's more of like, here's your discovery backdrop. Here's an asset that I think will help you do your job, whatever that job is. And Mr. and Mrs. AE, hey, let me just show you, this is how you would show this one thing. And it will actually help you in whatever this is. But have the SCAE more of that relationship. So I try to coach our team to use that relationship to help the reps know what to show when. And it kind of goes like what Andy was talking about, what story to tell when. But I don't know, I've just found not calling it a demo and calling it something else, whatever it is, actually makes AEs a lot more excited to leverage whatever that thing is.
Yeah, I think.
Sorry, Todd, go ahead.
Oh, thanks. It was Andy in the comments that just said, like, there needs to be some maturity that, like, a demo is not a demo is not a demo. There are different types of demos for different points. And, that needs to be part of it. And Brent, I think that's kind of what you're saying is like, a demo doesn't have to be a full-blown massive thing. It could be exactly 2 clicks, right? Yeah. Sorry, Laura, go ahead.
No, I totally agree. And like having been an SDR, an inside sales, a salesperson, right? Like there's something about that partnership, especially when we get into field selling, right? That partnership with the SE and the sales rep. I mean, even I was out at a bunch of customer meetings on the East Coast last week. It still is not easy to log in so you can even just see the screen of your demo. That has not changed. Okay. Like all this tech has gotten better, but it is still just like that moment of trying to make sure that you're going to be able to actually show it to the customer is horrible. So I love that you're terming it like the sales rep should be able to like whet the appetite of the customer, right? And does it need to be a live demo? No. I also think we underestimate, now I'm going to put my sales hat on, the job of the sales rep in that meeting, understanding what's happening amongst the people in the room or on the Zoom. And like to see when an SE shows something and see the reaction, right? And gauge who holds power and who could be a champion and, who's my economic buyer and why is that person asking that question? Like you can't do that and do a demo at the same time. So I totally agree that we should enable people. Love the idea too of what you were talking about of especially when people are new, empowering them to learn the tech easier, like amazing. But I'm still a little old school. And it depends on your tech, right? I'm not going to go out and like show Google Cloud tech for God's sake. Like, I mean, I'd make an idiot of myself in 5 seconds. Now, People.ai, I can do a demo. I do demo. Like I can whet the appetite, but I'm not going to go deep. Not yet. Maybe I'll get there. But yeah, because I use it.
That's awesome. I'm seeing a lot of comments. I really, as you guys mentioned, Andy's comment got 8 likes, that there's different types of demos. Jonathan, the CEO of Demostack, will be speaking in session 3. We've been talking about this idea of kill the demo, even though our name is Demostack. Kill the demo. Just show product, right? So show product, be proud of it, and it doesn't exactly what Brent says. It doesn't have to be the whole thing. It could just be, oh, here's this feature that I think you might find interesting, and then you discover by showing product and learning more. I think is super interesting. We have a few minutes left, 4 minutes left. So if anyone has any questions for these amazing panelists, now is the time. Todd, maybe I think with our last 3 minutes, unless there's a question. Okay, here, we got one question. What is the maturity curve for companies to go from old school sales-led demo to automation tool? What are things we should think through when thinking about buying any type of demo tech, if you will? This could be for anyone, Todd, Laura, Brent.
I mean, one thing that since we use the tool, I mean, one thing that I think has really helped us significantly, and it may be different from like old school to your sales process, it may actually be your tech. So for us, one thing where Demostack's helped a ton, and not to end this with a commercial, but I'll help you out here, is AI. So like AI, Todd said earlier, but AI is such a big thing, and it's harder than hell to demo because it's dependent on so much data. So you think about the story you're trying to tell for a different type of demo, AI is actually really hard to get it right. And so for us, what we've looked at is demo automation helps actually tell the story with your AI functionality without actually having to go through and manipulate a data model that's going to support that story. So I've looked at it more from the tech and what I need for the tech to tell the story versus our sales process, which has changed. But where I've leaned in more to it is, as our tech's evolved, I've realized that not all tech was built to sell. It was actually built to do the thing it's built to do. And so you may want to actually look at, how do I want to tell the story, and where do I have challenges in my own product to tell that story in a simplistic way, more so than your sales process. Because then anyone could use that tool. Yeah.
That was so quotable, Brent. Like, our products, I don't know how you said that. Our products are not necessarily meant to be sold. They're meant to do the thing they're doing, which makes them hard to sell. Yeah.
Yeah.
So true.
That is a really,
We've all sat in the room with our product team and been like, have you thought about how I'm going to sell this?
That's like a light bulb moment there, Brent. Like,
sweet, drop the mic. I'll stop now.
Let's drop the mic. Amazing, everyone. Thanks for coming on. We have 2 more sessions for Demo HQ. Always a pleasure to speak with everyone on this panel. It's been a few times that Todd's been on, and Brent and Laura. It's amazing to have you on for the first time. So let's thank you for coming, and let's start the next session.